All right, let's continue our exploration and rediscovery of the cloud system, the cloud particle modeler. Let's launch Howler 9.6 right here in Steam. And what we'll do today is explore yet another way to model them and create shapes of another nature again. Let's go back to non-full screen mode, since I'm not capturing the entire screen. There you go. All right, so just to double check which version we're running here, we go to help, about Howler, and we can see this is indeed version 9.6. Keep it cute is the nickname, and it's a paint program, and of course a lot more. We have lots of brushes, we have lots of predefined media. There are some 3D stickers also. These are animated brushes with lots of cartoon characters in there by Michel Agulot. And lots of other tools to fill, to create gradients that is, and lots of other things to do. But what we'll explore today is the modeler for, let's see where we go. All right, so let's see there, filters, animated cloud or particle modeler that we can use to create clouds. Now, one thing that it will ask you is whether you want to turn this into a single image or into an animation. So for this project, I'm going to say, yeah, let's do an animation. And let's give it, let's say, 123 frames. And okay that. All right. So one thing I'd like to do is actually explore beyond adding a sphere, which is what we saw here, adding another sphere, and then making that the cloud system. Beyond using the airbrush and drawing the patterns for the cloud and adding this, I'd like to show this one here, adding a height map. For that, I'll need to go back. So let's go and exit out of the cloud modeler or particle modeler and actually create some sort of text here. So I'm going to go erase the entire image to white, make the animation. Actually, we'll do the animation later on. So let's create just the initial image here, plain white, and then draw some text with the text tool here. Let's do something like this and give it a nice welcome message. Welcome, and perhaps give it a bit of larger text like this. That's not big enough. Let's go choose a different font. Bell Gothic. There you go. That's actually too big now, so let's go and reduce it a little bit. Something like that will be good. Okay, let's go close this and grab the lower right corner where we can resize this and just give it about sort of as tight a place as we can. And we can also use these tools here to adjust the position a little bit up by 1 pixel at a time. Center it. There you go. And then we could make the whole thing a brush. Why not make this a brush? So now we actually have this as a custom brush. We can go and store that if you want to use it and manipulate it, manage it for some other things. But certainly one thing we'll do is simply stamp this down with one click. Then we can turn the preview off for the brush and minimize this. Just keep it handy in case we need to get back to that. All right, so we have this text here. Let's go and create this as an animation. And let's do 123 frames. And now we have an animation with this text message here. And what we'd really like to do is build our cloud from that. So the idea is we go to the filter, animate it, and particle modeler. And what we can do is build a height map from the current image. So the current image is this thing down here. Let's go and build a height map. And it builds a height map that you can see the message in here. All right, so let's say we want to see a little bit more of it. You can zoom out until you see the entire welcome message. There it is. Zoom out a little bit more. There. So that you can now turn that into the cloud preview here. So get ready to render, and there it is. Rotate it a little bit with the right button, I suppose. There. Now maybe maybe you need to, to change it a little bit. Let's go back to unfreeze and perhaps deform it, randomize it a little bit more, deform it some more, make it more difficult to read, and that's not it. So let's go and start anew. Let's see if we can create more points. Let's see, we do 2000. And let's see if that affects the height map. I don't know if it does. Nope, still the same number of points. So the number of points really depends, sort of the mesh of the number of points is probably a function of how big the image is underneath it. If you want more detail, make a starting image that's a little bit bigger. So let's say we just take this as it is, and perhaps we'll go there and save that. And so now we want to do a little animation with this. And we have the text underneath it that was already there, and maybe we need to not do that. So maybe we need to clear the frames. I don't know if it's actually going to do that, but what we want to do is the cloud pattern here in front. All right, so this is a typical example where we probably should be saving this cloud pattern so that we can go and change the background and then render this cloud. So let's go save this cloud and have it in the same cloud information here, in the same cloud area. Cloud, there it is, in the cloud subdirectory, and we'll say this is the welcome message, welcome cloud. File saved. So we can get out, we can clear the image, and in fact, let's do a different one also. Let's do the inverse one. Invert it and just recreate the new image, the new animation from that. Let's say something like 1, 2, 3. And so now we have sort of the inverted image along the animation, and let's go create the same technique, use the same technique here. Something like particle modeler, there it is, and create the height map from that. That one has fewer points. So what it actually does is it doesn't look at the size of the image necessarily. It looks at how many pixels are there that are bright. Right? The welcome message here is now in the inverse, in the negative, compared to what it was before. Right? And so now you have a cloud message like this. Now you might want to make this a little bit flatter. So you could go back to unfreeze it, and you can see here in the lower right quadrant it has a fairly thick depth to it. So if you use a scale, you can scale it down a little bit flatter, right? And then get ready to model. So now it's a much flatter welcome message. Oh, that was actually in the wrong direction, in the wrong axis. Maybe I'll need to do that again. Unfreeze. Let's see here, something like that. And maybe it's this direction that I need to flatten. Yeah, something like that. There. Okay, so that's another technique that we can use to create sort of cloudy looking messages, right? You want them on black background in white, that way you see just the text. The earlier version I had, it was the black text on white background, and then the entire collection of the white pixels, the white region, the background essentially became the cloud. So let's do that one more time if we want that just really for a text. Let's do so let's do this here. Let's switch the erase to black, and then use the text tool with a message that we can put in here. Let's say Easter bunny, because we know we'll be seeing some really soon. So Easter bunny. And perhaps it's time to use a different font. Let's see, something really rich there, the black. Oh, that one's good. Let's go a little bit smaller though. There. And you know, one thing also, if you set it like this and then you say, yeah, that's a little bit too small, let's make it bigger. One thing you can do is you can make this a brush, and store it as a brush. Where's the brush? Store and manage, right? And enable the preview. And you say, yeah, I'd like this bigger. So you can now manage that. You can resample it right here, make it double size, or maybe not quite that much. There you go. Click it down here and minimize this. So now we have the Easter Bunny. Turn that into a cloud. Let's go to filter, animated, particle modeler, and add height map. Okay, here is the Easter Bunny cloud. Turn it to make it ready to render. Now here we have relatively small lettering, so it would be probably more impressive if we had bigger ones. You know, bigger letters, more area to cover. Let's do one more thing here. Let's try doing this again. Let's add that, right? There you go. Add the same height map again. There you go. Let's do this 2-3 times. And now you have basically overlapping Easter Bunny messages. And that may be a technique. Let's do that again, just from scratch here. So what we'll do is we'll say animated particle modeler, and say add the height map. We get 777 points. Add the height map again, another one, and you can see how they overlap here. Add another one. And there's a little bit of randomness to where these blobs appear, or how many of them will appear. But if you do this 2 or 3 or 4 times, you'll eventually get a nice set of clouds that are contributing to perhaps a easier to read message here. But there is also a bit of a randomness as to where they go, and you may need to readjust their position. You might see, for instance, here that there are some. Let's go do that again here. Add map. Okay, so we see them here. Let's go do that just twice. All right, and so now what we want to do is, here's the Easter and here's the bunny, and there you go. Let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, so we need to flatten these a little bit. Let's go and unfreeze the whole lot and scale down. On this one here in the lower left quadrant, we can make it a little bit flatter. There. Something like that. We can also move it back into the center. Move it up a little bit. There. And then freeze it. And then also get ready to render. So now we have a fairly reasonable Easter bunny here. Where is my Easter bunny? There. Easter bunny. All right. So now we are going to save that one and call this one Easter bunny. Not bunt, bunny. There you go. And probably erase the background. So let's do animation clear to clear all frames, and then go back into the cloud modeler or the particle modeler, animated particle modeler, and load our, or open our Easter bunny clouds. There you go. And now we are ready to do a little bit of an animation with that. Now, if you want the clouds to be readable in the 3D modeler, right? If you want the view in the 3D modeler to make you read the Easter bunny like this, in this pose, in this position, so you can read the message, what you need to do is you need to make sure it is readable down here in this quadrant. This here is the top view. This here is the left view, and that's the way that you will see it in the 3D designer. So one thing you'll need to do is select it, unfreeze it, and then use the rotate tool to see if you can manage, there you go, to get it something like this position, Easter bunny. Right. In my experience, that's the orientation you'll need. You can change it here a little bit. right? But you'll need it to be readable in this view, and then that will make it also readable in the 3D designer. Unfortunately, in the current release, the 3D designer allows you to position and scale it, but not to rotate it. So the cloud cannot be given a different orientation once you take it into the 3D designer. So this one here is your chance to give it the right orientation. All right, so let's do that. Let's go and freeze it. Let's go and save it again. Let's go overwrite the Easter Bunny here. And let's go, actually, let's see it here inside this part and do a little animation as we've seen before. You can do something like an animation. Let's go resize the entire image a little bit, the entire window, so we can actually see the bottom, and just do a little animation there where the Easter Bunny is going to be. What are we doing? Like rotating it or something like that. Let's move it from far away. Let's bring it to the back first. That's with the left button, and we are basically moving it, transforming the cloud. You could also instead transforming the camera. Right? You could move the camera forward and backwards and move into the scene. A couple of different ways to make that effect. But if you click on the Easter Bunny, it switches what it is you're moving. Right? If you click on the cloud, it switches to that. I mean, to the light source here. If you click this light source, it moves that one, and then you have the camera. If you select the camera here. So let's go and grab the Easter Bunny, make it go far away. That's for the first keyframe. Let's go right there. And then somewhere around here, the Easter Bunny will come to visit and come really close here. And something like that. Okay, keyframe that. And then we'll do a little spin here. By around here, we'll move it a little bit more closer to the right, but also rotate it. Something like this, a full turn. Something like that, and then we'll just ease in a little bit more, move even closer there. Quick look at what that looks like. Here's the bunny like so, maybe a little bit higher. Let's bring it up a little bit higher there. Okay, and then leave it alone for a few more frames here, right? Because these frames it's going to need it when we go with the secondary motion and give it some laziness, right? Maybe this time we'll give it 15 and enable that secondary motion, do the displacement fields just alive to keep it moving even if nothing else changes. And you know that we now have an animation where it's doing some really funky things here. It's moving and coming closer like that. That may not be exactly what we wanted. Alright, let's try without the secondary motion, just the movement we had there. Okay, alright, so let's go and render that. Like so, without the, well, that's just a preview of the grid. In the render, it's not actually rendering the grid, so we're good. So this is just a little example of some animated cloud where the cloud is actually derived from a text that you had in the image initially. And you know, you can actually take an image. It's not using the text, it's using the pixels. So you can take any image. You can take a picture of yourself. You can take a 3D render, a mountain scene, anything you want. You can turn into the cloud elevation map. Right. So that's what that was all about. And here we have a tiny little animation. This one's very fast. Maybe we need this to go a little bit slower. You know, you can use the motion prediction module in the animation. Let's first store this one. You never know, we might want to use that again as is. Store to disk. And coming up in a second, there it is. So now we could use the motion prediction module, animated motion prediction module, and say for instance we want to set, I'll leave it at 12, but give it a lot of search distance because it's moving pretty fast. Let's do a dry run on that. Let's not scan for dropped frames and just go. And it's okay if there are some distortions because after all it is very noisy and moving anyway. So that's what that would look like. Let's not complete that with it. Let's do another thing. Let's do the 3D designer, right? I wanted to show you if you take the let's go clear the animation. Oh no, actually let's keep it like this. But let's go and render some pattern that we can use right here for the elevation map for the mountains. plasma noise, something like this. And then let's make it a sort of a mountain scene in the background, but kind of a low valley in the bottom. So I'm going to use the gradient here, linear gradient, but I'm going to use it in multiply mode, so that I can reduce the intensity from the bottom going up here. Reducing that will basically reduce the elevation, right? If the value represents the elevation, the height map, then you have sort of a low valley here where it's dark and it's going into the mountain peaks in the front, in the upper part. So let's go store this image quickly, and let's go to 3D Designer. Where is it? Transform, 3D Designer, and there it is. You see a low valley going up into some hills and then eventually into the high mountains. So you can see a nice view like this. Let's go adjust a little bit for higher peaks, and just a couple of tweaks here. We can add the ray traced shadows. We can change the position of the light source, or how low it is, far away, brighter. You see the shadows cast. You can turn it around. Let's give it something like a side view. Side views are always good to give some perception of depth. You see the shadows cast that way. Let's change the background color to a nice blue, a little bit of whitish, and then enable that one here, altitude, high altitude, low zenith, and adjust that way what the ambient light will be. And let's see, a bit more of less of a zoom here. Perhaps move it in a little bit. How do we move it in? Here's the Z position, and then also add more options here for erosion. Let's give it some erosion. Let's add some sediments. Let's add some coloring, texture here. Snow caps down, grass down a little bit in the valleys. Let's get some coloring of the snow caps. There it is. And a little bit more snow here. Something like that. Let's try with a little bit different effects on the blending. That's too sharp, too crisp. Let's give it 22 or even more. Let's do 44. There you go. And perhaps 5 there. So we've got the valleys, the sediments, we've got some erosion, not too much of that. Let's increase the flatness threshold so we don't see all these bumps here down in the valleys. Let's give it 22. That should flatten it off a little bit. Let's see, so now to the clouds. Right, so I wanted to show the clouds. Let's zoom position a little bit. There you go. Perhaps a little bit of depth also with the fog. Just a little bit like this, some ground fog. Let's enable that, nonlinear, and have some ground fog. Low value, no, that's the upper value. There you go. Tiny little bit of ground fog. Okay, so now we can focus. Now that we have this view, almost there. Perhaps too much distance fog there. Yeah, I guess I need to have a little bit of perspective. There you go. So now that we have this view, I want to add the fog, the clouds. All right, so let's go get our Easter Bunny there. And here it is. That's the Easter Bunny. See how we can read this message, this text? That's because we changed the orientation and rotated it around. All right, so now what we can do is just move the distance for it a little bit. So we can move it around, we can move it to the back, even behind the clouds, behind the mountains. We can move it to the side. We can have it go up and down. Here's the Easter Bunny. You can make the size smaller also, but you cannot rotate it, you cannot turn it, not in this version yet. So that's why you needed to give it the orientation, the proper orientation. So let's see here, a little bit like that. Now if you change the orientation of the light source, you'll see the lighting on that Easter Bunny cloud change as well. So that can be a really interesting effect. And maybe you want it to light it almost from the back, kind of from the right here, and we'll actually place a nice a nice solar flare there. Let's get the clouds. How big, or how small do we want those? That's a little bit too much glow here. There you go. Let's adjust that. And I'll give you this. It's a bit difficult to read. It is very small. It was very small text, but I'll give you the idea of how you can work with that. All right. So something like this, and then perhaps one more time. Let's see what position we want there. We want to see it all. Something like that. Okay, let's do a final render with some anti-aliasing. Let's see, pre-filter. Do we want to get some peaks in the mountains, a little bit details, or not? Okay, that. This is just one image. I don't need the animation all over anymore here. So I'm going to free that. I'm going to save the image or store it. I'm going to go free the animation. Free the animation. There you go. Don't need this toolbar, animation bar anymore. What I do need is add a little bit of a lens flare here now. Right, so I'm going to go to here with the gradients, right click on that where you can add the lens flare, and find myself a nice little, I think this one is my favorite here for this kind of scenario. Put the sun right there, probably actually a little bit more. Okay, undo that, Control Z, a little bit more to the right, because looking at how the sun is hitting, how the light was hitting the mountains, I would say the shadows are cast in sort of a direction like this. So I probably need to put the sun around here, out of view, out of sight. There. Huh? What do you think? Something like that. Perhaps I can add another one here, this one. Well, that may be too much. Or maybe I want a different coloring for the sun, a little bit more of a reddish tint. There you go. Watch those lens flares. It's nice to have them, but don't do too many of those reflections. Might kill it. So let's go and undo that perhaps and try another one. You know, redo, right click on that and store it just in case. If we like it, we might want to keep it. Let's go undo now and try another one. Some of the little ones we have over here. This one perhaps with a little bit of a reddish tint. Yeah, or one of those with the nice circular reflections, and if you really want to overdo it, use that one. That one has definitely too much of it. But anyway, that's your time now to play and explore, and thanks for watching, and thanks for handling.